Turn the lights down. Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you.
The only garbage I see floating out there is just supporters.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the Garbage Gang. Welcome to another episode. We're glad to have you with us. We've got a very special guest with us here today from Hollywood, California. We've got Jonathan Chaffin, one of the original founding members of the Garbage Gang. You might remember him from Liberals for Trump. But before we get started, I want to remind everybody, if you want to be a member of the Garbage Gang, we need you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Check us out, share it with your friends. We love what we're doing and we want to keep doing it. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us from Hollywood, California.
Thanks for having me.
You know, it's been a while since we've spoken in depth, and I'm glad to be able to do this with the other members of the Garbage Gang.
Yeah.
You know, Jonathan, for those of our Garbage Gang members who don't know about how we met, I just want to recap that a little bit, because that was the very first episode, and subsequently when you came on with the Liberals for Trump episodes, is when we started to get millions and millions of views. But we were at Gold's Gym, and you were wearing a shirt that said, "Come and take it." Is that right?
Yeah.
And then what happened with that guy who approached you? Because I was minding my own business. I saw your shirt, but I didn't plan on saying anything to you. I kind of kept to myself at that time at Gold's Gym. What did that guy say to you?
He asked me if I was wearing the shirt ironically. And I was like flummoxed. I'm like, no, I'm not. And then he kind of shook his head and like walked away. And at that time, this was like way pre-election, when it was not okay to wear any kind of Trump stuff around here. And then you appeared.
Yeah, because from a distance, I saw this guy
like,
giving you the business.
What is this guy? I'm like, what is this guy going to say? And then you're like, hey, I'm actually a Second Amendment lawyer. And I was like, oh, cool.
And then we chatted for a little bit and decided that we should continue the conversation on the air, because at the time we were airing every Friday on WFYL here in the greater Philadelphia area. And I thought we had a great conversation, and we ended up staying in touch, becoming friends, and doing more episodes together. Now, I want to ask you this. When I appeared out of nowhere that day, if I had told you that, you know, a year plus down the line, we'd be in a position where we've done episodes together that have been reposted by Donald Trump Jr. and Sebastian Gorka and have gotten millions of views, and we'd be in a cartoon introduction for a podcast together, what would you say about that?
I didn't know about the Seb Gorka thing.
Oh,
that's cool.
Yeah. Well, when you have millions of people watching, it's kind of hard to keep track of every single one. You're a star, John.
Yeah. No, yeah, very surprising. Yeah, very surprising. I didn't think like anything would get like really seen by anybody. So yeah.
It's very fortunate, though. I do want to ask you, you are out in Los Angeles, and I haven't been there in about a year at this point, and we're seeing a lot of stuff about LA on the news. Can you tell us a little bit about what your perspective is about what's going on out there?
What kind of stuff are you talking about, Mike?
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff going on in LA, I suppose.
I haven't seen anything.
From what we're seeing, the town's on fire and people are fighting with the federal agents and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's all happening in downtown LA. I am out in Santa Monica, so I'm pretty removed, and LA is a massive city that's spread out. So you can just kind of go on about your life and completely avoid what's happening. I don't know how it appears to people who don't know LA and are seeing it on the news, but it's confined to downtown LA, but still down there. Apparently it was pretty nuts. I didn't go. I was supposed to go down there on the Sunday for something, and I canceled because I was worried that they would block the freeway So the freeway was blocked by these protesters. There are people, obviously, you've seen the images of like people burning Waymo cars, which is actually a point of overlap for me with the rioters, but destroying other property, attacking ICE agents. Um, yeah, it's been like, it's pretty nuts. And actually, that morning, I was in a coffee place the Sunday morning. I think it started on when did it start? Like on a Saturday or Friday? Um, that Sunday, I went in to get a coffee and I was chatting with the owner of this coffee place and like complimenting him on the coffee. And one of his employees, like, we've talked about Trump and he comes from like a military family. I was wearing an American flag t-shirt um, on Memorial Day, and we kind of like shook hands and had this. So he like knows where I stand. It was awesome. But he was there, and then the owner of this place, and he was like, you know, presuming that everyone shares his viewpoint on this immigration issue, and was like, for me, this is just unforgivable. Anybody who voted for this.
Who
Um,
voted for what? Did he
like
specify?
to have people deported and voted for Trump basically. So I kind of like stood there. I just like didn't react um because the coffee's good and I don't want to like all the other staff members there know that I'm like a Trump person and I wear my Trump stuff. But that was like a funny little, you know, you can kind of feel it around the city.
Now, I remember you saying that you voted for Obama twice, and when Trump was running the first time, you heard about him talking about the wall on NPR, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And at the time, you took that as some kind of racist rhetoric. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I just thought it was like nuts. Like I was like I'm trying to like cast my mind back, but you would like it somehow became normalized that we had an open border. That it was just like, oh my God, of course, it's like not a big deal that a sovereign first world country like a world power would not have a meaningful or secure border. And that anyone who would like take a contrary view to that or promote the need for it is like immediately xenophobic, racist, which is just nuts in retrospect. I thought it was an issue when I heard that Trump thing on NPR. I was like, well, this guy's just trying to like rile people up. This
Mm.
isn't a real issue. But it's like, it's a critical issue.
Now, when you talk to people on the left about immigration, a lot of times they'll use immigration, illegal immigration interchangeably. And I
Yeah.
think that frustrates a lot of people on the right because when we talk about the problems associated with illegal immigration, we're not saying that there should be no immigration whatsoever. And when people on the left talk about deportations, they say they're deporting immigrants, and people who support Trump are against immigrants. But it's really very different things, immigration versus illegal immigration. Would you agree with that today?
Yeah. I mean, just to be clear, like, I feel like right now we're cleaning up a mess from the Biden administration. Um, I do think it's sad, like, to see videos of people being like taken away by ICE and being deported. If they're, minus the entering the country illegally, but if they're like working decent people, that's objectively sad. Like, I think for anybody. But this is the fault of the Biden administration because we had an open border. Um, so it's not like having mass scale human trafficking into this country from a cartel is not like that's not a viable policy. It's not compassionate. It's evil. Um, so I'm of the belief that there should be like an orderly, common sense immigration policy where people like apply to enter the country. If we've done the research on and we need workers, then let's have like a guest worker program. But after we've done that, looked at data and what the needs are. But the biggest thing in this issue for me is, which never gets articulated, I feel like, is that the impact of illegal immigration on the census data, which then impacts electoral votes and districting politically, and that this is like an operation basically to take control of the country. I know it like sounds to some people like it's nuts, but it's on purpose. So in the next census in 2030, everybody gets counted. So whoever came in the last 4 years, I don't fault these people for coming in, by the way. Like, why wouldn't you come in if you're looking for a better life? It's known that, you're not going to be stopped or apprehended. Like, why wouldn't you do that? I don't fault people for doing that. Um, but the electoral vote thing, like this is a maneuver to basically to do what's been done in California and have just like one party rule. So the deportations, I don't even know what the logistics of deportations are. Um, but this clearly impacts like American sovereignty and the political landscape, and
Now,
it benefits the Democrats.
this administration has put into effect certain policies that would allow people to self-deport and frankly be paid to do so because of the cost of deportation, and some people are taking advantage of that.
And return, by the way, and potentially return.
Right. After going through the process the right way.
Yeah.
Doing so legally. And I think that a lot of people lose that portion of the discussion, that it is possible for something to be very sad but necessary. And when you're talking about people getting deported who, as like you said, are looking for a better life and are working hard, yes, it is sad to see them have to go. But at the same time, the alternative is not working, and it's going to be even more of a disaster if it were to continue. When you listen to what the people on the left say about this, sometimes it seems that they slip up and they say, well, if we deport them, then who's going to mow our lawns and clean our toilets, which I think sounds horribly prejudiced and a terrible thing to say. I think a lot of them realize after they say it probably shouldn't say that anymore because it sounds awful. But you're saying that they have to sort of come up with something, because if they came up and said what you just articulated, that would be a disaster, wouldn't it?
It would, but I think they're almost like I'm wearing this T-shirt that says "Deport the Laptoppers," by the way.
What does that mean?
And I think you're like, I think you've just like gotten into that. Like, I had this shirt made because I see these like people working on laptops in cafes that do conference calls and like pollute and invade public spaces, have no self-awareness, and it drives me nuts. And I find them like incredibly irritating. That every place has just been turned into like a WeWork. People are, it like annoys the shit out of me. But those same people like doing the email jobs are typically the liberals that have benefited from having an illegal labor force that they can underpay for nannies to do their gardening, to deliver food to them. It was the same people during the pandemic also that were totally fine, just like sitting on their laptop at home, while these people brought them food and services and stuff and like risked their health supposedly. So I thought this was like I find this group of people really irritating. And I wish we could like deport them.
So these are people who are in positions where they have employment that really fosters a false perspective on the workforce in general, and they don't understand the working people because of the situation that they
They're
have.
like, people call them like email job people or something. It's like an inflated sense of, self-importance, a lack of awareness about spaces, the noise they make. I think it's like a civilizational, cultural thing. It's like, to me, it's like an abomination to me. But I'm a real, some people would call me like a curmudgeon. or something, but I don't give it. I believe in like civilized, like Japanese level behavior in public.
So it's an issue of courtesy, and these people are inconsiderate by doing that. It does
Yeah,
sound a
and
little curmudgeon-y, though. I will say that.
they don't appreciate, and it like I'll give you an example. I was in Mexico, in this small town, in this beautiful, this little patio of this hotel. It's like beautifully done. They had little signs on the tables, like no phone calls. And people are doing calls and stuff. There's this American guy sitting there on his laptop. They've invaded like Mexico City and all of these other places. On his laptop, everyone's having this like beautiful breakfast. And this guy is on his laptop, just like, yeah, Mike, did you send the file? And I'm like, what? Like, I don't want to listen to this.
I'm
So
not
I
trying
went
to be
over
at
and
work right now.
I'm not work. Don't bring me into this. And also, how dare you pollute this space? So I went over and like picked up the little sign thing and like put it in his face in his conference call thing. It's like, dude, get off your computer.
Are you becoming more and more curmudgeon-y as time goes on? Because I saw that you were complaining about bicycles in Santa Monica.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I find
Tell us
my
about that. Tell us about that.
So, I go to a park in Santa Monica. I've actually stopped going to it. And I'll get to that in a second. But I go to this park. It's right by the beach. It's a grassy hill. There are like people laying out there, people with babies and kids, dogs. People go there to watch the sunset because it's elevated and you can see over the Pacific Ocean. And these little kids on their e-bike, those electric bikes, are like ripping around on the grass, like ripping up the grass, almost hitting people. They hit a dog. One of them hit a dog, and they're just like ruining the place. And I'm like, okay, like this is illegal, and like we shouldn't have to put up with this among like the dozens of other things you have to put up with if you live in California. So I wound up like I've said something, a few other people, have said stuff, and then I finally called the police. So the police don't come in Santa Monica, by the way. Like that might sound strange to people who don't live in a liberal city in California. The police don't come anymore unless someone is about to kill you. So they told me they were going to come. They don't come. I called them, I think, like on 4 different occasions. And they basically never show up. And then the last cop I spoke to was honest with me and was like, listen, we can't pursue them. There's nothing we can do. I detected a Boston accent in the guy on the phone. That's where I'm from. And I was like, Officer so-and-so, like, are you from Massachusetts? And he was like, yeah, I am. So I said to him, I was like, this wouldn't happen in a town in Massachusetts, would it? And he started like laughing a little bit and was like, yeah, you're kind of right. Because they were like, there are a lot of townies in my town. And I'm like, yeah, the townies would like sort this out.
Like self-enforce.
Yeah. But a dog was hit by one of these kids. One of the kids called one of my friends, a woman, the N-word. And apparently he's the son of an Academy Award-winning cinematographer.
Really?
She like this group, this isn't just me. This is like a movement of people who are sick of it. So yeah, I don't know. And I see stuff on Twitter that, this is like a cultural thing. These things, they go too fast. They're not, you don't have to have a motorcycle license to drive one. Also, like, I'm not like young kids like want to have fun and like rip it up. That's totally fine and normal. But it just maybe doesn't have to be at like this
Time and
beautiful
place.
park. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the motorized bikes you're talking about?
They're electric.
Electric.
I wish they would actually vandalize some of the, I think there's good vandalization.
What do you mean?
So, for example, and this is just like this is like teenager normal behavior. I think you like everybody when they were a kid, especially boys, you like want to mess some shit up. So, and then you get in trouble, and then, there's no getting in trouble anymore. That's the part that's missing. So you don't like, there's no lesson in anything. But I recently went to the beach like 3 days ago. There's advertising on the lifeguard towers and all the beaches in LA. So you like your experience of going to the beach in Santa Monica, if you live here, is you go out, there are homeless, psychotic people like in the palm trees, in the bushes, in the bathrooms, and you're just kind of like avoiding these zombie creatures. And then you walk out onto the beach. The beach is polluted, by the way, and so is the water from the fires that happened, the avoidable fires. And then they've put advertising on the lifeguard towers, and you're like, oh, like the city must be out of money. They're, they're taking this globally iconic symbol, like the California Lifeguard Tower. Like, what else symbolizes the California dream to the rest of the world? Like Baywatch, beauty. Like, what else is there? And they've put advertising on it for like Coca-Cola and some Hulu show. And I think it's like a lack of civic pride, recognition of beauty, and taking something that's like the crown jewel and just destroying it. I think it's leftism in action. So the vandalism, to answer your question, like if some kid wants to vandalize an advertisement on a lifeguard tower, like be my guest.
Is a, we have
But
the,
don't hit a dog with your e-bike.
the judge of good and bad vandalism. Now, are the taxes quite low in Santa Monica, and that's why they need the extra advertising money?
Oh yeah.
Is
Yeah,
that
it's a
what's going on there?
tax-free zone practically. No, Santa Monica's bankrupt. So yeah, there's no money. There was a request to hire more police officers. It was declined. They've taken the Third Street Promenade in Santa Monica, which is a walking district. It's like an open shopping district, which used to have some of the highest foot traffic, uh, retail storefronts, large big box retail. I'm not like a huge fan of it, but it was a destination, and they've just passed an ordinance to allow open drinking there because it's been so ruined by crime and homelessness that it's dangerous to go there, and businesses have left. Like REI closed their flagship, a liberal REI closed their like flagship location there. So in desperation, some genius in Santa Monica said, what if we just allow people to like drink, which is going to bring in, another element of people to Santa Monica to drink on this street, and it's horrific.
That'll solve the problem for sure.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned at one point that the fires were preventable. I can't claim to be an expert on fires or these particular fires. What do you mean by that?
Well, the water management in the state of California, for one, like we've had record rainfall, but yet the reservoirs are empty. One of them was taken offline and never put back online.
Why?
It was the woman who basically mismanagement, the woman who makes $750,000 a year, who runs LA Public Works, allowed that to be taken offline. They knew that it was a kind of a special event with the high winds and how dry things had gotten. The response, there weren't enough, they weren't prepared. Typically, they have fire trucks that are, I forget what the terminology is, but to have them already out and sort of, and like half deployed or forward deployed for stuff like this. So there were a number of measures that could have been taken. And as an example, that guy Rick Caruso, who owns a very, high-end shopping mall in the Palisades, he had his own fire trucks that he paid for privately, and nothing happened to his property up there because it
Really?
was done like someone who knows what they're doing planned for something, not one of these like incompetent imbeciles that runs the city of Los Angeles.
And then there were a lot of people complaining that the government wasn't letting them back into their homes for a certain period of time, whether it was to recover things or to rebuild. Did you hear anything about that?
Oh yeah. It's like
For their
yeah,
own
I mean, I've
protection, right?
almost like living in California is like living in North Korea.
Mm.
I've almost you have to like you get to a point where you just like check out of these things. There's so many absurdities that you're just like, I can't it is this real? So it's like takes forever to get a permit to rebuild. I don't know what the numbers are, but there were like 3 permits granted in the Palisades to start rebuilding, and then to get back into your property, and then to have disposal come in and remove everything so that you can start to rebuild. Um, yeah, it's like the most backwards. I, it's just the most backwards place. It's incredible.
I got to push your buttons on something. So eh, we can agree that overregulation by the government is a bad thing. You did complain that the e-bike riders don't have to have a motorcycle license. Why should they
Right.
need a motorcycle license? Why do we need the government
Because
getting
they're
involved
going,
more?
those things go, some of them go in the 50-mile-an-hour range, and some of them go in the 35-mile-an-hour. Like they go up to 35 miles an hour.
So your
So
point is
if
if
you
people
can,
need a license to ride a motorcycle, you should also need a license to ride this. It's not
yeah, if they're going the
necessarily another.
same speed, if the risk is like, if the speed or the age, if you're operating a machine that goes that fast and can cause the same amount of damage to yourself or somebody else, then you should at least be 16 or 16 and a half and have to have a license to do that, in my opinion.
Oh, so is it more of an age thing or is it a matter of knowing
Well, the
whether they can
first
handle it
barrier would be
responsibly?
age, because in order to get a license to operate a motor vehicle, you have to be 16 or 16 and a half in California. And then on top of that, there's a motorcycle license that just proves that you know how to drive a motorcycle.
Yeah, what's that the government's business though? Get rid
I
of
mean,
licenses altogether.
maybe just a driver's license.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, that's it.
yeah, yeah. More freedom. Get rid of all licenses altogether. What do you think?
All licenses.
Yeah, no more licenses for
Yeah,
anything.
we could have like 10-year-olds operating motor vehicles.
More freedom. America.
Um, I do have a question about like talking about the immigration thing and birth rates and AI.
Hmm.
And can I voice this?
Of course. Permission to speak freely, my
Um,
friend. That's what we're here for.
So I feel like there are a few things going on. Number one, we've had all of this illegal immigration to the United States. Do we know what the number is? Like how many people are living here illegally right now?
Well, we've heard
It's like
estimates
tens
between,
of millions of people.
some will say 10, some will say 20. I've heard anywhere between 10 and 60 from people who make these estimates.
Right. And the first reaction about deportations is like, these people do jobs that American citizens don't want to do. They don't want to pick fruit. They don't want to wash dishes. Americans won't do these jobs. We need these people.
I think that sounds awful, but yes, we have heard people on the left say those kinds of things. Maybe some people on the right that I haven't noticed, but it sounds an awful lot like, oh, if we get rid of slavery, then who's going to pick the
Right.
cotton?
It's cheap labor. Like the guy in the cafe he was like, he couldn't make the connection between the fact that he relied on, like, he was relying on that. It was just virtue. So you have this immigrant labor force. We have a birth rate crisis here also, right?
Sure.
Like we have a demographic population collapse crisis in the West and also in the United States.
Musk talks about it all the time, right?
Right. So you have those two things where like potentially, I don't know, does one like solve the other? I don't know. And then the third thing is um, AI and job elimination. This like coming, um, automation and eliminating jobs with AI, which is already happening. I don't know if you have those Waymo cars in Philadelphia, but we have them here. They're self-driving Ubers, basically. And they're all over the city. So like people are cheering these on. Oh my God, it's so cool. And then I just look at it, I'm like, oh, like what are the 200,000 Uber drivers going to do in the state of California? Is anyone going to like address that?
Maybe the same thing the taxi drivers had to do, though. I heard a lot of people complaining about that when Uber came around, particularly in New York City.
Right.
Over in Manhattan, you had these guys who paid $1 million for a medallion,
Right. The
under the
medallions.
promise that it would be exclusive and only they would be able to operate in that field. And then Uber came along, and it ultimately ended up being allowed, made a lot of these guys go bankrupt.
Right. Or they had to become Uber drivers themselves.
Yes, and that really only seems to last for so long because the pay doesn't seem to stack up.
Yeah.
It's not really comparable.
So what's going to happen when all of the drivers are out of work because everything's automated? What's going to happen when all the truck drivers are out of work, when all of the trucking and logistics are automated? Um, I just don't hear like, population collapse, but yet, 30% of people are going to be unemployed. There doesn't seem to be any kind of clarity on what's coming. And there's a lot of signaling, like I'm happy with what Trump is doing so far, like getting all of the investment, bringing manufacturing back to the United States, supposedly, but there doesn't seem to be clarity on what the plan is.
Yeah,
Like
that's a tough
everything
one.
is going to be, it seems, is going to be automated, and nobody's addressing this. Are we just going to have tech overlords? And that's it?
Yeah, you see people like Andrew Yang suggesting universal basic income as a proposed
Terrible.
solution. It just let's just become socialists. That'll solve the problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, let's like remove, human uh, usefulness. Like
That's what it
what
comes down
better
to, right?
recipe for disaster is like making mass swaths of the population like redundant and useless and just giving them like a little that's I don't know, have you seen that movie Idiocracy?
Of course.
Yeah, that's just like let's just have idiocracy and everyone can buy, your garbage TV and all of your crap. You can get it from like Andrew Yang's company or Zuckerberg or Bezos or whatever.
Right.
Um, it's very alarming.
Have you been in one of the automated vehicles?
Oh, don't use them. I refuse to use them.
Is that a principal thing or?
Yeah. I've like I posted this thing like boycott Waymo.
Hmm.
And I think people I don't I don't know what the solution is. I don't know enough about AI. But nobody's answering the question. And I see this like anti-human thing taking hold and it's like a runaway train. So for now, I think people should recognize this and not just mindlessly adopt technology. Um, like there are a number of things that people just mindlessly adopt that are not good for them. So I think people should push back on things like Waymo and say like, no, I'm not using Waymo. I'm not replacing a human being for this until there's like clarity and let the VCs and the tech people take that back and say like, oh, we have people actually are pushing back against this. They're not adopting the technology in the way that we thought they would and wanted them to.
Do you think
And
there's a
then
certain percentage?
maybe this gets confronted somehow instead of just like, sleepwalking into oblivion.
Do you think there's a certain percentage of the population who would be hesitant or unwilling to get into a vehicle without a human being in the driver's seat anyhow. Just
Yeah,
for the fact that it's weird. Like I'm
sure.
not getting in
And
that
then,
thing where there's nobody in the driver's seat.
yeah, I don't, it doesn't, I mean, someone made the argument to me about like it's good for women who feel unsafe with Uber drivers. I get that. I think that's like an edge case if you're a woman going home at night. Like I totally get that. Um, but my point is more like pushing back against this stuff
Hmm.
and saying no to it until this is we've been given like some kind of clarity. Um, I'm very suspicious like this there's been this split in the MAGA movement. It feels like with like, the MAHA people, um, the isolationists or whoever, however you want to refer to like that faction of the party. And then there are like the MAGA tech bros that I don't think are MAGA. I
Hmm.
think they're just power hungry and I don't trust them at all. And it was like like the David Sachs, those guys from the All In podcast. I don't trust any of them. I don't trust Mark Zuckerberg. I think they have way too much power. They interfered in the election. They censored people. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Like, I wish they weren't even a part of the movement. And I think big tech actually has to be broken up. But they're like accepted in MAGA, I guess.
So overall, well, let me ask you this: is there anything that you consider yourself to be a subject matter expert for?
Me,
Yes.
no, I'm just like a person with an opinion.
No, no, I'm not saying with this specifically, but like think of one area where you know a whole lot about that. You've been on this planet for quite a while. There's got to be
Yeah,
something that you think you know very well inside and out. And it could be
yeah,
something stupid like a particular band or anything like that.
sure.
Have you ever sat there and tried to ask AI questions about something you really, really know well?
No.
I've had this experience with firearms laws where I sat there and typed in questions about the one thing I really know about.
And what
And
happened?
invariably it's wrong. And I get a lot of people who call me with questions that are based on false information that they received from AI. Just another stupid example. I was a guest on a radio program in central Pennsylvania a couple of months back. And in the introduction, the host mentioned the Fighting Bonner Brothers. And I was unfamiliar with the Fighting Bonner Brothers. So I typed it in to AI real quick to see if I could get up to speed while we're on the air. And it gave me an answer that was completely incorrect, not even in the
And
ballpark.
this is Chat GPT or like one of the AIs?
I can't recall if it was ChatGPT or the Google version off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I've used them both. But ultimately, I mentioned it on the air. If you ever want to trust AI with something you don't know about, because that's really my point, is if it's giving me inaccurate information about something I know very well, and I'm able to call it out on and say, hey, that's not exactly accurate, then how much of a fool would I be if I were trusting it on something that I don't know enough to detect that it's inaccurate?
Sure. And there's like I don't know if you saw the video of the UCLA graduation.
No.
The other day of this kid like at the graduation with his laptop, like with Chat GPT open, like pointing at it and like he used Chat AI to do all of his work basically. It's basically like fraudulent. But imagine these kids that are like being educated using AI. But I've been reading a lot of stuff recently, like, I don't know if you follow Justine Bateman.
No.
She's like she has a no AI film festival. I forget what it's called. But she's very AI pessimistic. And also, there's also like the whole content theft piece of it. So I've been reading her and a couple of other like tech industry people with the very same assertion that like, 45% of this stuff is wrong. That these AI agents will be deployed to like work autonomously, but they're flawed and they take months on end to fix. and that there's been such a craze and so much investment capital pouring into AI firms that they're just like pumping this up. Like we're about to approach human consciousness, and have this like, refer to it as like God or whatever. And it's just so far from the truth, and that actually large language models like ChatGPT and the rest are extremely limited.
It's interesting that
So
you
it's
mentioned
very
that.
like like it'll just be interesting, and it's one of those things that it's like it's complex, so it's hard to know what the future looks like. But I use the only one I use. I rarely use it because I also like I think people will just lose their ability to think. But I use Venice AI. Have you heard
Really?
of that one?
No.
So they don't, I think it's the only one. They don't store your data.
They made it
It's
a goals.
completely private AI. These other people, I don't know, this guy has like asked his chatbot to marry him or something. These people are like insane.
I saw that a guy cried for 30 minutes when he proposed to his AI chatbot and it said yes.
Yeah.
That's
These
mental
people are like
illness, no?
detached.
I
Um,
feel bad laughing because if somebody does that, they have a problem, no?
but this is apparently like more common than you would think. Like people
Really?
using are going to AI therapists and using AI as therapists and like handing over their most intimate like details and thoughts to a technology company and just like pumping the machine with it. Which is why I think Venice is interesting. But um, like I'm a person who thinks earbuds are like I see people wearing earbuds or an Apple Watch, and it's like a no-go for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Why
I'm
is
like,
that?
oh, they like don't get it. They're like the technology has like taken over their being. Um, and like I just it's like a no-go.
What about one earbud? Is one earbud okay? Or
No,
does it have to be two? No?
wired headphones,
Oh.
um,
That-
no earbuds, and wearing an Apple Watch is like such a like gross over adoption of technology.
The federal government recently began processing applications under the 925C Relief from Disabilities program. If you're federally prohibited from owning and possessing firearms, you shouldn't wait. You have to act now while this program's available. Visit us at thegunlawfirm.com and schedule a free case strategy session to determine whether you're a good candidate. Back to the episode. So in Johnny Land, when we're talking about the earbuds, is it only AirPods or is one beat in the ear acceptable?
Oh, one beat, it's wired. You're fine. You're
No, it's
fine.
not. It's not wired. It's a wireless beat that goes around the ear, so that way it keeps it in place.
It's
Because that's the problem
Bluetooth.
with it. It is Bluetooth. No go.
Forget it.
Oh no, I'm going
Yeah.
to be banished from Johnny Land.
No, just don't wear it at Gold's Gym, okay?
The thing is that I always wore it at Gold's Gym, and you probably just never noticed
didn't
because I always had
notice.
the hat on and the hair, and it just covers it up and it blends right in. So I've got to get away with it. It's okay if I don't get caught. All right, is that okay?
Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned the comparison of AI to some sort of godlike authority, because a while back, Kurzweil was on Bill Maher's program, and he's predicted a number of different things that have come to fruition throughout history, like the collapse of the Berlin Wall within a year or two.
Uh-huh.
And he had mentioned decades ago about computers and artificial intelligence, and his predictions as to being as smart as humans was about right now. And we're not there now, but I'd say that a lot of people purport that we're getting close. And his prediction was further that there would be some kind of integration between the human brain and AI by 2030, I believe he said. Back when zucchini was being mandated and forced upon people, so you could go to work or go to restaurants and stuff like that, a lot of people mentioned that they thought that biblically this could potentially be the mark of the beast, because without it you cannot buy and sell. And certain preachers did sermons and had discussions about that and said that one of the defining things about the mark of the beast will be that you will have to acknowledge or purport that there is no God, or you'll have to deny God, essentially, in order to get the mark of the beast.
Yeah.
When you type in questions regarding faith to these AI models, I would bet, I haven't necessarily done it before, but I would suspect that you don't type in, who is God, and it says there's only one true God. It is Jesus Christ who died for our sins. It probably gives you a whole host of different things and says, well, who's there to really know? Some people believe in this, some people believe in this, some people believe in the other thing. If we have some kind of integration with the human brain and AI, it would appear that you would have to necessarily deny God in order to get it. Because if that's integrated with your brain, you're accepting the fact that who's to say, and it could be any of these things, people believe different things. It seems eerily similar. And I would suspect that there's going to be a point where if this does come around, the authorities are going to tell everybody that they must have it, otherwise they cannot buy and sell or participate in society. Because they're going to say, well, you have your own dummy human brain, you didn't accept the AI, and therefore it's dangerous for you to be among the people who have this AI integration. Am I totally off the rails, or does that make some kind of sense?
It makes some kind of sense. And also, it'll be like, I don't know, I think it'll be for like wealthy people. It's like, are you optimized? Do you have Neuralink? And it'll be this like dumb, this is like the ultimate over adoption. This is like the Apple Watch and the earbuds, and now like I'm gonna hand my brain over to something and my soul.
Do you see a parallel with the
I think
zucchini, though? Because they said you're unsafe.
People refer to this as like transhumanism. And yeah, I think it'll be like a wealthy, disconnected person thing. Like all of these tech bros, one of the prevailing attributes of these tech CEOs is that they seem disconnected from their bodies, and from like a spiritual life. And it's replaced by technology and problem solving. And I think they're disconnected from their own humanity and humanity at large. So that's why I don't trust them even on making decisions about how human beings should live. Like I'm not interested in hearing from Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg on that.
So you don't think that it's necessarily going to be a situation where the government's mandating people get optimized, as you called it. You think it'll start where, the elites...
It'll be like, are you employable if you're not optimized? Like, what can we do with you?
When it first starts, and do you think people will readily admit that they have it? Or do they want to kind of make it seem like they've got all these natural abilities that sets them apart? They're naturally gifted. Because we see this, you and I met at Gold's Venice. You see this in the
like
world of lifting.
Peptides,
natty
steroids.
Or not. Yeah, people, we're going to be doing natty or not videos.
Testosterone replacement, like all of that stuff is already like, that's already transhumanism, I guess.
But we have people who are fake natties too, right? Where they swear that they're natural, and meanwhile they're taking performance-enhancing drugs because they don't want people to believe that the only reason they have their physique is because of those performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah,
I'd still be, in better shape than you if I weren't taking this. It may very well be true, but do you think we'll see something like that possibly with the AI integration of the human brain?
I don't know. I hope I'm just like long gone by that time.
Do you think it's that far away though? Because
we've seen how rapidly
this is progressed.
I'll tell you, I ran into a friend of mine in the supermarket who's like one of these, I think he had one exit in technology and he's like working on something else. It's an AI thing. Super smart guy. And I'm like, and I wanted to interview someone from that world about all of this. And I was like, what's the deal? Like for a lay person, is everyone going to lose their job or like what's the deal? And he was like, within, I would say first the Uber drivers are going to be gone, and then all the trucking, like within 3 years, you'll have human level intelligence and it'll be inefficient to employ a human being. That's what he said to me. And I'm like, okay, will you do like an interview with me just to explain this is what I feel like is lacking? Can the administration or any of these people like articulate to regular people what the future holds and what the economy is going to look like? Um, and he wouldn't do that conversation with me because of his he was like, I can't, my investors, da, 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 and I've asked like multiple people from that world and they won't do it. So on the one hand, it's like, are we approaching singularity in human consciousness? And then it's like AI can't answer like a question and is wrong 45% of the time. Which
Yeah.
is it?
There are certain things
And
that
it's stealing. Have you seen the lawsuits
no,
recently?
no.
So some of the content owners are starting to sue these AI companies that are like using, you know, uh, the generative AI stuff for like cartoons, all sorts of stuff, are starting to sue these guys because it's like mass content theft.
Mm.
So it's interesting. I just don't know enough about it to know what the future holds, but I feel like there's a total lack of transparency, especially from the like tech bro, all in podcast dudes, that are, at the forefront of this and have kind of wormed their way into the MAGA movement.
Now, it's my understanding that it's not necessarily just blue collar jobs that are at stake here, though.
No, it's
Because
white.
there
Yeah,
are
it's absolutely.
certain IT jobs and coding jobs and things
Yeah.
of that nature. Maybe even certain types of attorneys, not necessarily litigation or anything like that, but there are a lot of different things that people are using AI, even if it's not 100%. And if you actually check it, it could be helpful in drafting things of that nature. Maybe it's
Yeah.
still got to have human eyes on it, but there are a lot of different things that we're at the point where it is becoming involved now. As far as fully replacing people, I'm not entirely sure about that,
Yeah.
but it could certainly cut down
And then the
on.
robots.
Yes.
It's time to own guns for sure. If you don't own a gun, like get guns.
If you have a robot show up to your door to deliver a package, would that freak you out?
I think I'd like answer the door with like a 9mm handgun
You probably need a shotgun for that, no?
or a shotgun.
You need a
I think you
widespread.
will see like the Waymo. Did you see during the Los Angeles riots? This is where I said I had like overlap with these scummy people.
Mm,
They started ordering the Waymo cars down to the riot location and were like burning them.
yeah,
And like for a different reason, I was like, oh, cool, they're f***ing up those Waymo cars.
really. I do
So
want to. Let's talk about that some more, though, because it
I
seems like
felt
there's a
so
crossover between.
I can
that.
see a future where like people are going to get angry about this. If there isn't an alternative and a way for people to make a living, there's going to be civil unrest. Like you're just going to mass unemploy all of the truck drivers in this country, and there isn't going to be an alternative to make like the same kind of living, and like everyone's just going to shrug their shoulders. I don't think so. Um, I think you'll see like violence and destruction of property.
And you don't know the answer. We're admitting
No,
that.
I mean, no.
If you've not solved the entire world's problems, Johnny, what's going on? Come on.
I can't from my little corner of the world in Santa Monica. I'm just trying to get the advertising off the lifeguard towers.
I want to talk a little bit about the riots again, because with your shirt, Deport the Laptoppers, and talking about the people over in Santa Monica, It seems like people being inconsiderate irritates you. Is that fair to say?
Sure.
So, what do you think about the people who were rioting and setting things on fire? I think I saw that somebody threw a brick at a cop's head or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of destruction to go
They were throwing
around
bricks off of the bridge over the freeway.
over the overpass, right? And you have people like that. They're standing there. They're holding up Mexican flags. There was talk about you can't be illegal on stolen land. What do you think
Yeah.
about people who do that? They wave the Mexican flag. They're complaining about deportations of people who came unlawfully. They're destroying property. They're throwing things at law enforcement officers. Is that a little inconsiderate?
Yeah, I mean, they should be, if they're not citizens, they should be deported. Period. End of story. And if they break the law and they are citizens, they should be arrested, detained, and prosecuted. Period.
Is that controversial, that statement? It would seem that that's something that mostly everybody could agree upon, no?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Like, I, this seems to be like the Democrats are choosing this issue as like maybe they think they can make hay out of like taking the side of like leftist criminals that are attacking American officers and like defending that. Like that's the strategy of the Democrat Party. Gavin Newsom is out there trying to like take control of the California National Guard, like, and then you have Alex Padilla like trying to push his way to Kirsten. This is all performance.
Sure.
It's a strategy and it's performance to get to appeal to their base. But what a pathetic, like that's the only button they have to push is this like pathetic thing that resonates with no one except for like miserable old women.
It's true, because this was a very popular issue for Trump during the election cycle, and people agreed that things had gotten out of control, and they're willing to elect Trump in order to get this under control. The border crossings have decreased exponentially.
It's like
which
zero.
is a great thing.
Yeah.
Which is, frankly, one of the more important things, because if you have a busted pipe in your basement and it's filling up with water, before you start taking buckets of the water that's already in there and trying to get rid of it, you got to fix that busted pipe, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this happens in liberal cities across the country. Like it happened in New York, Seattle. They were like, you saw these guys, like these federal agents, like sheepishly were allowed to leave the building by Antifa or whatever. Like I think these people just don't get prosecuted by local municipalities. They need to be prosecuted like hard. And they need to face consequences, just like another little mafia, and they're the violent foot soldiers of the left in this country. It's bonkers. It's political violence. It's like it's terrorism.
Well, you have people complaining that the agents are covering their faces while they're doing their job.
Right.
But those agents are getting doxxed, and their families are at risk if they don't do that. Am I right? Am I saying something that's unreasonable? Am I making that up?
And I think the rioters or whatever shouldn't be allowed to cover their faces. I think Newsom tried to pass this. Was it Newsom or someone else tried to pass this stupid law where law enforcement agents wouldn't be able to cover their face? Or was it Elizabeth Warren?
Maybe.
Yeah, these people are like anti-law and order, anti-law enforcement. They don't believe. I mean, the baseline of any society is just like protection of property and safety so that you can go about your business. These people are blocking the freeway in Los Angeles, and Karen Bass is allowing that and telling the police to stand down. Like, no way. I'm sitting there, I'm like, tear gas rubber bullets, horses, like beat the out of these people and throw them in jail and prosecute them.
So when
Like, why
you-
doesn't everybody feel that way? I can't. When those kids were at Columbia, they're like, well, we're not going to really. I'm like, fire some tear gas in there. Like, they'll be gone.
and these are people who were threatening people and disrupting.
Oh, the little leftist jihadis that took over Columbia University and like prevented other students from going to classes, blocked Jewish students. Like, I like.
I think you'd
allowing-
agree that protesting that doesn't impede education, everything like that, even if they're
Of
saying things that
100%.
you don't agree with,
Freedom
that's
of
good.
expression,
Yeah.
freedom of assembly, all of that stuff. But if you were infringing on somebody else's right to an education or taking over property or violating somebody else's constitutional rights, then it's a wrap.
Yeah, I think that's fair. When we talk about the coverage of what's going on in Los Angeles with these riots, is how you described them, are we still getting these are mostly peaceful protests from the people on the news?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Mostly
what the
peaceful.
leftists, yeah, that's what like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, we don't need the National Guard. We don't need the Marines to be brought in. The other thing I do have to say about this, which is a little weird, there is a little element of like the George Floydization of events. Like I was talking to my sister and she was watching this in New York from a helicopter, like from above. And it's really like the federal building and a couple of blocks. And you're like, oh, like this isn't, I think people elsewhere think like the entire city of LA is like on fire. It's not. So there's a little bit, Scott Adams called it like the photo booth op or something, like for both sides. Like but then the imagery goes out and it informs public opinion in the same way that like the George Floyd thing was not, emblematic of the larger data or reality in American life, but the imagery portrayed a story. So I feel like the same thing happens to a degree at these, like if you go in person, you're like, oh, this is like 2 blocks. It's just like, it's a photo booth.
Caden, you there?
Yeah, still here.
All right, so you're down in LA. Has your life been impeded by these protests or riots or whatever you want to call them? You're out there in LA.
Yeah, I was actually a bit tapped out of the news for a second. I only found out about them because I noticed traffic was so bad on the 101 originally, and I was like, it's not the usual.
See,
usual
that's
rush
the
hour
way to
traffic.
live.
That's
That's
awesome.
how you do it. You log off and you don't watch the news.
So
Yeah,
Caden's
I think
in
that-
LA and didn't even know this was going
Yeah.
on because he didn't watch the news.
Yeah.
And so the people of your age group and the people you hang out with are obviously not talking about it independently. It's not at the top of their list.
I'd say I don't know, definitely see a lot on social media about it, but like you said, it's really been made out to seem like whole city's on fire. In fact, I have a lot of out-of-state family members that hit me up very concerned about what's going on in LA. And as I said, I didn't even realize other than the traffic rush originally. So
I think that's very telling for anybody who's been watching the news and thinks that it is more than it is, I guess. I'm not saying that cars being set on fire and stuff like that is no big deal and we shouldn't care about it at all. But I
We
think
shouldn't care about the Waymo cards, but
in Johnny Land, no Waymo
Yeah.
cars, no earbuds,
no Bluetooth earbuds,
no
Apple
Bluetooth
Watches.
earbuds, Apple Watches.
And if you have a phone call, take it outside. I don't want to hear about like your work stuff in a coffee place.
We need to work out the laws of the Johnny Land. That's what we need to do. We need to write all of these statutes. What are the penalties
I already have
associated? You have it? You wrote it?
Well, I think like first offense, like for using speakerphone in public, that's another one. Could be like a warning, like jaywalking. You get warned, second offense is like a ticket, and then third offense, like El Salvador. You're
Caden,
out of here.
let's hear
Yeah.
from somebody because Johnny is the oldest one in the group right now. What do you think about these things that irritate Johnny? Any of them irritate you, or do they seem normal for your generation?
Hmm. I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot of my generation lives with those AirPods in, but I definitely see where you're coming from on on a lot of these, especially the public spaces. What you're saying about the bikes too, tracks with me, but I'm not sure it's a common consensus in my age group.
Well, it can't be that far off if you got somebody of the younger generation who sees where you're coming from, Johnny. Is there
Yeah.
anything that he hasn't listed, Caden, that really grinds your gears?
Hmm. I mean, off the top of my head, the way people drive out here for sure.
Ah,
That's that's some culture shock, I'd say. Just the driving etiquette in LA, turn signals, all that good stuff. But other than that, nothing I can think of.
that is one thing. It seems like no matter where you're from, people think that you have the worst drivers. You know, when I was raised in New York, it's like, oh, we have the worst drivers over here. If you ever spend time in New Jersey, it's the worst drivers. You know, certain parts of Pennsylvania, people say we have the worst drivers.
Well,
You ever been down to
something
Texas?
people
Texas
do-
is like a completely different. It's a completely different kind of bad driver in Texas than in L.A. or New York.
Well, the thing about LA driving, this is one specific thing. If you let somebody, nobody ever lets you in, but if you let somebody in, like you're going down a narrow street and you sort of like pull over and let somebody come through in this like considerate, you know, maneuver in normal life, I expect like an acknowledgement of
Like
that.
a little wave of the hand.
A little
Thank
like,
you.
yeah,
Yes.
okay,
Thank
yeah.
you. I appreciate you. Yeah.
People don't do that here.
No. No
There's no
acknowledgement.
like no wave, no acknowledgement of any kind of like generous, graceful behavior.
That's just rude. That's just rude.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
what the heck, man? Next time I see you and you need to get in out of these millions of people in LA, when I run into you again and you're in this situation, I'm not letting you in next time, right?
Yeah, the psychology of that in LA is that people are super friendly and nice in public life, excluding their like inability to behave and lack of self-awareness. But in interactions with people, they're like very friendly. But when they get in their cars, they become their true selves.
Ah.
They have anonymity, so their shadow self comes out in the car and they behave like,
Maybe you got to memorize their license plate, so just in case they do come in, you don't do that again. How about honking at people when the light turns green? How is that in LA? I'm sure a lot
Well,
of people
honk at you
sitting
if
there
the
on
light's
phone.
red.
They will. They want you to go even if it's red.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever been in that position though, where you're sitting there and light turns green, and you don't want to be that rude jerk who leans on the horn, but you do want to get their attention because you got places to go, and you kind of got to give it just the nice
like
and
a
easy tap.
beep,
Yeah,
a
you got to be
toot.
real.
yeah.
I always thought that a good invention would be is if we can add a selection that's like the polite, you know, the polite alert to the person in front of you, like "Excuse
Oh,
me,
like
sir."
a secondary, like a bird chirping or something.
Yeah.
Like
Courtesy horn.
an old lady going, "Excuse me,"
Excuse me,
instead
sir.
of
Excuse me,
yeah,
fine gentlemen. The light has
yeah.
turned green.
That would be civilized.
Yeah, maybe we're onto something. We have to have
Yeah,
an alternative to because you got to let them know that hey, I'm not trying to be rude about this, but at the same time, the light is green.
yeah,
And it's time to go. Because you always feel bad if you try to give it one of those gentle taps and you lean a little too hard, because then you seem like a jerk. And you're like, oh no, I
yeah.
wasn't trying to do that. Maybe in LA, they don't even care though. Caden, did you have something on that?
Oh, with the horns, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a good way to go about it. There's definitely a makes a world of difference, the little tap versus the just laying into the horn. For sure. I think that goes a ways.
It is. It's almost like it's an understood language, right? You ever hear those horns that you press them and they play like La Cucaracha or something like that?
Oh, those custom horns.
Yeah,
I've heard a
people
couple
in
of those.
Brooklyn used to have ones that played like the Godfather theme and stuff like. So maybe we could just decide on one theme that is the polite alert at the green light, and we got to get it to catch on though. That's the only problem, because people won't know what we're trying to say until everybody knows about it.
Well, there isn't going to be any driving, so we won't have to worry about any of this. It'll all just you'll just be sitting in like
How
an autonomous
irritating would
car.
that be? How irritating would that be, though? Think about that. Let's say you're stuck behind a car with no driver.
This has happened already. It happens
Oh, really?
frequently, and those cars make illegal turns.
Like that wrong way down a one way or something?
And this is something, or like a left across a double line, like you can't go across. I saw one of them run a red light. And I wondered, this is a question for you, Mike. What happens if a driverless car commits vehicular homicide?
That's a very interesting question.
Who's liable for it?
Yeah.
I put this out on Twitter to like see if somebody would come back, and I got like a couple of
Because people
different-
don't often think about it from the criminal perspective. They think about it from the civil liability
right.
perspective.
So what
that,
if
of course, you're
the
going to sue the
car was
corporation.
like criminally negligent, like it was manslaughter or
Right.
something, and the person came back to me and said like it's the same thing as when there's a recall on the brakes of a Toyota or something,
If
that
they
the company
knew.
isn't like criminally negligent, that it's a malfunction of technology.
Yeah. I don't like the sound of that. Do you?
No, but this is like all of these things need to be addressed.
Yeah.
Like,
There's going to be a whole. And then people are saying that AI is going to get more and more involved in the legal field. So is AI going to be making the legal decisions and making the legal arguments about whether AI controlled motor vehicles can be the basis for criminal liability or civil liability?
yeah,
or
like
the case
can the
may be?
CEO of that company be prosecuted?
It's
Are
a
they
very, very
negligent?
interesting
Like-
point. Caden, would you get or have you been in a driverless car? Let's ask that first.
Yeah, I was about to say, I actually took a Waymo for the first time fairly recently when I was in Arizona, which I didn't realize, but they operate out of there, so they're super common in Phoenix.
Really?
But yeah, I had an interesting experience. They have a lot of those misters out in Phoenix because, it's 100-something degrees over there.
Sure.
But restaurant on the side of the road was essentially just rolling out this wave of fog onto the road, and the Waymo came across that, did not like it very much. Just pretty much just came to a complete stop for this kind of thin layer of fog that was coming down over the road, and didn't really know what to do, but it got through it eventually.
Interesting. And I wonder why that is. It's not like, oh, the invisible man can't see. That's why he can't get through.
Yeah,
It must have detected something, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think it was just the fog. I mean, however those sensors operate, they're not seeing the same thing that we are. So
Did
little
it freak
things
you
like
out at
that,
all
you
to
don't
be in the
really-
car with no driver?
Wait, sorry, what was that?
Did it freak you out at all to be in a car with no driver?
It's a trip for sure. Just that empty driver's seat and watching the wheel and car do its thing on its own. But I don't know. I guess wasn't too worried about it at the time.
Would you do it again? Do you prefer it to an Uber or a taxi or anything like that? Or are you indifferent, kind of like whatever's available at the time?
Yeah, kind of whatever works, but it does have its upsides. They let you play your own music in there. You can get full range of control of the AC and everything like that, which probably couldn't say the same for an Uber. But I mean, other than that, I'll take what's available, I guess.
He raises some good points, Johnny. You're going to banish him from Johnny Land.
No, it's all everyone's own preference. I'm just like pushing what I'm pushing.
Yeah, just set him
Um,
on fire. That's all.
Mike, what do you think about Iran and Israel?
Oh,
and
right. Yeah,
Trump.
let's get to that at the bottom of the hour.
Can we cover that?
I'm going to go into my detailed expertise on foreign policy as we're wrapping up the show. I'll let you get into it. I will say this, that from the 1,000-foot view, I know that there are a lot of people who are Trump supporters who were very much hopeful that there would be no new wars and that we'd have peace under this Trump administration. I know that you were one of them because you're a real liberal and you protested the Iraq War. And I think a lot of people have come out as concerned that we're going to see something like that take place in the future. And I could understand that perspective, but that's not a nuanced sort of opinion or anything like that on exactly what's going on. I am not a foreign policy expert by any stretch of the imagination, but let's hear what you have to say.
Well, you're the only one that's not a foreign policy expert, I guess, because everyone's a foreign policy expert. It seems.
It does seem that way, right? People have very, very strong opinions about this.
Like, my opinion is that if Israel can destroy Iran's nuclear program, then great. Like, job done. I don't believe in nation building, American boots on the ground, any of that stuff. And if the U.S. can stay out of it, then great. I don't really understand. I'm more interested in like I guess people have used the term like woke right, which I think is dumb. But then the isolationists in MAGA that I think are like Tucker Carlson and some of these other people.
How many people are in Iran?
Oh yeah, how many people are in Iran? Like it's like maniac.
You already know how many people are in Iran.
Yeah. I feel like these people, like so first of all, for Tucker Carlson, my theory about him, I don't think he's an anti-Semite. He supported the Iraq War at the time, right? He was like a neocon and then he changed his opinion. I think he feels a ton of shame about that. And it's unconscious and conscious. And he has this like reformed addict kind of persona.
Like overcompensating
So he sounds
for
like,
his past mistake.
yeah, he's like indignant about anyone who would suggest like any kind of military intervention by anybody. And he's like, I'm against death and killing. Like in this very finger waggy kind of way. It's like everybody is against that. But there are bad actors in the world. We have enemies. Like we're involved in the world has been globalized as far as interests and resources. There's spheres of influence. So to take that view, though I agree, I don't want anyone to be killed. I don't want war. But that position is like the same position. I think this is why him and Glenn Greenwald get along so well. It's just he sounds like a 14-year-old leftist girl who doesn't understand like how the world works. It's like such a childish position. Like hearing these people like Candace Owens and Tim Dillon, who I don't have any problem with them. I like a lot of their stuff. But on Israel, when they say like, I'm against like blowing up babies, like that's their position. I'm like, yeah, everybody is. Everybody is against that. But if you lived in a situation where someone was firing rockets at you and you're, Candace Owens and have young kids, how long would you tolerate that for? How long would Tim Dillon tolerate not being able to go outside to like get a cheeseburger? He would be like, immediately demanding the U.S. military intervene and neutralize that threat. Like
I don't think everybody's against that, though. You say everybody's against it. That's
unacceptable for anyone to live like that in America. And I think they would be correct in saying that. So as far as Iran and the isolationists, I don't, if we can avoid entanglements, wars of adventure, no boots on the ground, but we do have enemies. They're real. Like Iran did try to had a plot to assassinate President Trump, and has killed a lot of American service members in Iraq. So I find the position is like I I just find it kind of like you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to support Israel or think that America has to support Israel. I don't think that it's like anti-Semitic to take that position, but that just like I'm against bombing and war is not that's not like an adult position.
Yeah, maybe for people in the United States of America, but when you say nobody's for that, I think there are very evil people in this world
Yes,
who
there
are
well,
for that,
you're right about that. Like
because
and mostly in the
we
Islamic
see
world.
we see it in the Middle East, right?
Yeah, like
So
there is evil in the world. Like, hello, 14-year-old jihadi leftist girl and Tucker Carlson. You guys seem to have like the same opinion. Like, Iran never did anything to me. They never did anything to me.
somebody posted under the Tucker versus Ted Cruz interview. Uh, do you even know Iran's national flower? How about the top song in 1985?
Yeah, there were a lot of memes. And like Tucker's right, by the way, like what he exposed, I agree with. Like these people don't know enough and they're like calling for military intervention. Like that is totally valid. He did play like a gotcha game with him, but it's valid. Like to me, it's valid. At the same time, I think Tucker like doesn't he won't give the same interview to somebody else. Like he had Andrew Tate on his show and like didn't ask him about like
Webcam
cam
girls.
girls and
Yeah.
like all the
That's the first thing that
allegations
always.
against him.
It's interesting that you say that because that's the first thing that always comes to me because people saying, young men want a role model and he's masculine and everything like that. But that's the first thing that comes to my mind when you're involved in that industry and that's how you're making your money. Should anybody be celebrating that? Maybe I'm going to catch a bunch of heat for this, but I think that that's a pretty bad foundation to start from. And I don't want to get too far off topic or anything. What I did notice, it's funny that you said I'm the only one who's not a foreign policy expert because everybody seems to be.
Yeah.
I watched the entire Cruz and Tucker interview twice. I thought it was fascinating as somebody who's not obsessed with foreign policy and doesn't know the ins and outs of these things because I think both of them raised perfectly valid points at different times. And I thought that neither of them really came out looking awful. I thought both of them, had some
Yeah.
good points and maybe seemed a little stumped and less knowledgeable and their points less valid on others. But everybody who I've spoken to about the Tucker Ted Cruz interview has seemed to have even a strong opinion about the interview itself.
Yes.
So not even the issues that they're discussing. I've had some people say, "Oh, Tucker really, he's a piece of garbage for trying to attack Ted Cruz like that." Or, "Oh, see, Ted Cruz doesn't know what he's talking about." They had very strong opinions one way or the other. I feel like I'm living in some kind of island or something like that where I think they both raised some valid points, and it was a fascinating interview to watch because they were
Yeah,
going back and forth like that.
That's such a good point because so many of these people that I read, I'm on Twitter all the time, like monitoring the situation. I don't know if you saw those memes this week. Like really funny. Everyone's just like refreshing Twitter about the war like every 10 seconds. But I like there's so many interesting, smart people out there that I disagree with on some stuff, but I don't like discard them entirely. Like I mentioned Candace Owens and Tim Dillon. Like I loved Candace Owens's um, George Floyd documentary and the stuff she's done on like pop culture stories and domestic stuff is like phenomenal. I even think like this is controversial or whatever. I think Nick Fuentes is like very talented. He's like a talented, smart person and is like interesting. Some of the clips and stuff I watch are like interesting.
Some
It's
good
also like
insights.
absurd and I
It's like, I hate to
disagree with
say
them.
it.
But it's like, and then there's like, um, I read like Milo's Twitter, and Milo is like, he's brilliant. And so all of these different, I take like different things and it gets me thinking, and that's what I find so fascinating about it all, about like the media landscape. This is the media landscape, is all of these people that we have direct access to, rather than getting like filtered information from, you know, I remember the days when it was like the New York Times op-ed page was like whatever like Thomas Friedman decided to write that day, whatever like ridiculous nonsense that he was thinking about was like what people were talking about. Liberal, it was him or Maureen Dowd. And now you have like direct access to some really brilliant, interesting people from like across the spectrum, unfiltered. And I just kind of like, I don't know, I'm interested in different things. I have points of agreement, points of disagreement, but the way that you described the Ted Cruz Tucker thing is like, that's how I like absorb information and process it. I don't like, I'm not going to like discard someone entirely, but there's a lot of discarding and like side taking. And to me, it's kind of strange. I think it's just this like, this mix of all of these different viewpoints and people.
I want to wrap up on something along those lines. For the people who supported Trump and may disagree with his position on Israel and Iran, do you think that it would be wise for them to completely discontinue their support if they disagree with the position he takes on this? Or do you think that it would be wise
Yeah, I felt one of the things was like this week when this was going on, and by the way, like nothing's happened yet. Like the US is officially not involved in this conflict. And I heard some people say like, I'm out, I'm not like, it's over, whatever. And that made me kind of sad, but there's this zero sum kind of thing. Or like, who's MAGA? Are you really MAGA? I disagree with a bunch of these people on this issue, but that doesn't, like I said, like that's not the end of the road for me, because there's so much agreement. I don't like, it's very zero summy to me. And then there's also, and I totally get this, there are people who are probably like you that were like original Trump supporters from like 2015, 2016, who are like, you don't even know what happened during the first Trump administration.
Mm.
And I totally get that because my eyes started opening, like I would say in 2016. That was like when it started for me, when I was like, oh, that's weird. Or like, so to have people come later to a movement where people have like paid consequences, made sacrifices, it's like a very personal thing. So I understand how, and it is like, I feel like we saved Western civilization, so the stakes are so high.
Yeah,
But I
I'm a
hope we
big
can
we're all
still
welcome
like,
guy.
I hope it doesn't totally like fracture and fragment over these things. I hope there can still be disagreement. And I think on the right, there's like way more variance of opinion, which is really cool, compared to the left where everyone's like in lockstep over you could just like tell me one thing and I know like everything about you already.
You had said that if Trump didn't win, then it could be the end of Western civilization. You just said that we saved Western civilization. I have had some people who were in similar positions to yourself where they had previously voted Democrat and decided to vote for Trump this time around, although your change in position came a bit earlier. And some of them have voiced concerns about the fact that we don't have the Epstein files, we don't have the Kennedy files.
Yeah.
The Russia-Ukraine conflict has not ended. Israel and the Gaza situation, it has not ended. Now we have this Israel and Iran thing developing. What would
Yeah.
you say to somebody who's got all of those concerns, complaints at this point in the presidency, who did decide to make that leap and vote for Trump as opposed to Harris and Tim Walz?
So how far in are we? We're 6 months in.
Yeah.
The
Do you think Trump
borders-
shoots himself in the foot when he's like, I'll have that thing taken care of overnight?
Yeah, but imagine in 6 months, like the border is closed,
Right.
inflation is down.
Right.
We've had like a trade war and tariffs. We're getting investment in this country. Like he's moving very quickly. We've had all of the legal actions taken with the schools, the deportation of terrorists. There's like so many things, positive things have happened.
Sure.
I do have to say, as far as like the DOJ and the FBI, like I kind of wonder what is going on there. And if I see like Dan Bongino one more time with like a pouty face, complaining about like being appointed deputy director of the FBI after sitting on his podcast, making millions of dollars, wearing his We the People shirt, and talking about the Butler assassination attempt, and we're going to get to the bottom of it, and he knows something's wrong. And then he has the honor of being nominated by President Trump to serve this country and to serve the president. And he comes up with like, he's doing the news shows and being like, I'm going to be honest with you, it's really hard. I'm like in an office, I'm inside 10 hours a day, and like we're supposed to feel bad for this guy. So I don't like, it's early. I don't want to, it's too early to pass judgment on like the body of work, but like where are the arrests and prosecutions, like the meaningful ones? And Dan Bongino, like we don't want to hear from you. Like get off of Twitter. Don't go on a news show and asking for sympathy. Like go do your job.
Unless there's something to talk about. Hey, good news.
Yeah, go do your
we're
job.
going
And I
after
didn't
this
like
guy.
that Kash Patel was on Rogan. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
you've got 3 hours to smoke a cigar with Joe Rogan, and like nobody what?
It seems like a sort of a no-win thing. It is interesting to have these officials be in a position where they're going to have to be at least somewhat transparent or grilled to that
yes,
degree. I think that's pretty cool.
transparency and access is I love that. But if you don't have anything meaningful to share,
Right.
and we're early in the administration, like I don't want to
can't
sit
tell
on a
you. I
podcast
can't talk
smoking
about
a
this.
cigar.
Yeah.
Like this is
that's a good point.
leftist. This is leftist grandstanding stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like get to work.
That's a good point.
And one more thing I'll add to that is like the Kirsty Nome, some of the characters around Trump, like I don't think are great selections necessarily. I think things have calmed down with Hegseth a little bit, but they seem to try and be Trump, like in their little worlds. Like Kirsty Nome's got her gun out and like she's law enforcement. Hegseth is very like combative in the press conferences. It almost sounds like he's parroting Trump or trying to embody him. And it just like doesn't work for me. And it doesn't work for them. And I'm just like do your job.
Yeah.
Do your job and like let's see results and we can judge that. But like this, I don't know. This like trying to be Trump stuff it's not working.
There's only one Trump, that's for sure, right?
Yeah, and only he can do it. It's Trump.
He's one of one. Johnny,
Yeah.
It's good sitting down talking to you again. It has been far too long. I'm excited for what we're going to be doing with the Garbage Gang moving forward. And this seemed to work out perfectly well with being 3,000 miles away from one another. Caden, we appreciate you over there.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Thanks, Mike.
Any parting words for the Garbage Gang, Johnny?
No, let's see what happens here.
Love it. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you. Thanks for tuning into the Mike G and the Garbage Gang podcast. If you want to be a proud member of the Garbage Gang, we need you to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out one of the recommended videos, and comment. Tell us what you think. We love having you as a member of the Garbage Gang. We'll see you next time.